This is Artful Discourse, your weekly escape into the vibrant world of creativity, culture, and intellectual exploration. I'm your host, Benjamin Kirk, and I invite you to join me on a journey through the rich tapestry of human thought and the beating heart of artistic expression at Fresno State's College of Arts and Humanities. My guest today is Dr. Amila Becirbegovic. She is an assistant professor of German and Ethnic Humanities. In 2023, she was awarded part of a $1.9 million grant through the California Collaborative for Holocaust and Genocide Education. That grant was recently renewed and runs through 2025. She is using those funds to develop 6th through 12th grade curriculum to teach comparative genocide studies. Amila, welcome.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Okay, recently I attended a talk you gave called Remembering the World War II Past through Popular Media, held in the Fresno State Library, but it was hosted as part of the Americas and Holocaust exhibit put on by the Fresno County Library. At the end of that talk, you told your story in a very unique way, and I thought it might be interesting to start off by asking you, who is Refugee Barbie, and what happened with the overdue library books?
Well, thank you for the question, Ben. So I am a genocide survivor of the 1990s genocide in Bosnia. And in the early 90s, my parents and I were forced into hiding, and the majority of my family ended up in various concentration camps. So we were actually the fortunate ones to be able to remain in hiding for over 6 months before we finally got on a Red Cross rescue list. And we were able to board a bus that took us to Croatia, and then from Croatia to Germany, where I was a refugee. And when my dad came home and he found out after he stood in line at the Red Cross that he was able to get us on the rescue list, my mom turned to me and said, "You have 10 minutes to pack."
Mm.
And we were already in hiding, so we didn't have many things. But I did have my most precious toy, which was my 1992 anniversary Barbie. And she was wearing a white wedding dress that my aunt made,
Mm-hmm.
and it was lace with little tiny shoulder pads sewn in as well. So she was very special to me. And I packed her along with three of my favorite books that I had: Little Red Riding Hood, a book about cats, and a book about Snow White. And these were books that I got from the library. They were my first books that I checked out. And I checked them out right as the genocide erupted. So I went into hiding with these books. And every month that went by, I remember reminding my mom, please, please, can we return these to the library, because they were becoming more and more overdue. And so I was stuck in hiding with these overdue library books. And when we finally got on the list, I begged my mom as we were heading to the Red Cross to please drop off the overdue library books. And she said to me, "We are escaping and we have to run. We have no time." So I ended up escaping with my overdue library books and my 1992 Barbie.
Now, these stories, as I remember you telling them the other day, is that they were really interesting, but were simultaneously amusing and heartbreaking.
Yes, I think because I was 6, about to turn 7,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of my memories of these items and the experiences, which were incredibly dangerous and horrific for the adults, from my perspective as a child, I was preoccupied with things that children are preoccupied with. These were my first library books, so I had just learned about checking out books and returning them and took that very seriously, and I didn't think about the danger that we were in. And so, from the perspective of a child o- that experiences genocide and these atrocities, it can come across quite humorous because they're thinking about their own little child mind.
Right. And it's that innocence juxtaposed off just this horrifying backdrop, and that contrast for me really helped drive home the enormity and the reality of the situation. It makes it a very real moment.
Yes, I remember a very specific moment that, looking back now, I don't think that I would have been able to survive and do as well. While we were hiding in the garage, there were many times where enemy soldiers would uh, they would get very drunk and rowdy, and they would be shooting up buildings and setting off bombs, and we would just have to lie and wait on the floor and hope that we wouldn't be found. And my mom, in her panic, grabbed me and put me in a laundry basket and covered me with some clothes and handed me some hard candies and said, "Please be quiet." And she was just trying to save my life. And in my mind, I thought, I get to have candy after 6 p.m. This is exciting. So
Yeah.
I got to sit and eat candy while, gunfire was going off left and right. And in my mind, it was an exciting adventure in some way. And now I think back and I think that must have been horrifying for my mother. And
Right.
um, so there's something to childhood innocence that um, maybe helps you survive in difficult moments.
Now, you said you were hiding in a garage for 6 months?
Yes, yes. As the genocide was kind of percolating throughout, we had heard little bits and pieces, but we didn't know to the extent of the severity. And one day, my dad went into work. He worked at the local government building and was a lawyer. And his coworker came to him and said, "I have to warn you that there are plans for genocide, and we have established concentration camps surrounding the city. So we urge you to run, to go into hiding." And so my dad took him very seriously and turned in his keys, his badge, everything, and we disappeared overnight into that same coworker's um, garage.
Hmm.
And it ended up that he was one of the concentration camp guards, which is how he knew about the plans for
Oh.
genocide. So we were hiding in his garage, and every day simultaneously, he was going to work as a guard in the camp. And he would come home and he would tell us, "Today we captured your uncle, and you should have seen what we did to your aunt," or, "We beat your friend really badly." And he would share all the horrible things that he did in the camps while we were hiding and while he was keeping us safe to some degree.
Wow. I almost I don't have a response to that. It's just incredible.
Yeah. And I think it is a really shocking sort of juxtaposition that
Hmm.
someone who is saving you can simultaneously be such a horrific perpetrator. And I remember him distinctly coming home in full camo gear with guns and just sharing these stories so aggressively with us. And then later, while I was doing my PhD, I learned about this phenomena called doubling in psychology. And a lot of genocide survivors see a similar phenomena in perpetrators that seemingly turn sort of away and let them escape in the moment, what they describe as their lucky moment. But a lot of that is attributed to sort of the psychological turmoil of the perpetrator. It's a
Hmm.
way for them to sort of give themselves a little bit of a psychological break and a way to justify the horrific things they're committing against thousands of other victims by letting one or two individuals escape, keeping them safe, hiding them, not saying that, they saw them grab an extra piece of bread or allowing them to run away into the woods, etc.
And so your family was able to get on a bus and escape to Croatia and eventually to Germany, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
And what happens next then? Your family needs to rebuild. What's life like after escape?
Well, we were really fortunate to be able to come to Germany. Many others were sent to various other countries, anywhere where they were willing to be taken in. My grandfather was already in Germany as part of the guest worker program that had started taking place in the 60s. So we ended up coming to be with him in Hanover in northern Germany. We were very excited to reunite with him. But when he picked us up at the train station, he sort of warned us about his living conditions because he was working really difficult construction work and
Hmm.
rebuilding German cities and buildings and restaurants. And we arrived into a one room tiny basement with no bathroom, no beds, just one tiny sink with cold water only. And it was a really harsh reality. While we were safe from imminent danger, we were by no means comfortable. And it was a very difficult first few weeks.
Hmm.
We had to constantly ask people if we could use their bathrooms. We had to ask people for food. It was a quite challenging time.
But they were able to build up. It sounds like. Did you remain in Germany through your early education and formative years?
Yeah, I did most of my early education in Germany. I had kindergarten, all of elementary school, and started high school in Germany. My father and my uncles were able to quickly get jobs, and all of the families were able to get their own housing and apartments. And we really assimilated into German life and culture. And, you know, by year 5, 6, really felt like this was our home. And we lived, depending on whether you're talking about my uncle or my parents, we lived anywhere from 6 to 9 years in Germany before we escaped and were refugees a second time.
Oh, tell me about that.
When the Dayton Agreement was signed in 1995, um, it was an agreement that was put out by the Clinton administration and signed by all the major Western leaders. It brought immediate peace to Bosnia and a ceasefire. However, it split Bosnia in two.
Hmm.
And so, even to this day, Bosnia is divided into the Republic of Serbia and the Federation of Bosnia. And my hometown, unfortunately, is in the Republic of Serbia. In the Republic of Serbia, there is still active denial of the genocide. The various concentration camps are privatized by the Serbian government, and there is no official recognition of it. When we tried to return to our home, it was so badly damaged that the paramilitary forces ripped out our toilets, destroyed our plumbing and pipes, and everything, littered our walls with bullet holes to discourage us from returning. And when you're already a refugee and you're struggling to have a roof over your head and food and assimilate and learn the new culture, you don't have a lot of money to rebuild a home from the
Hmm.
ground up. So it was very difficult to return. So we ended up applying to come to the US, and my uncle was able to sponsor us. He was already in the US as a refugee. And so we came over to Tempe, Arizona in 1999.
And you ended up going to Arizona State for your BA and your MA,
I did, yes, yes.
and then PhD at UC Davis.
That's right.
And then how did you end up at Fresno State?
I was not quite finished with my dissertation. I had just started, and my advisor said, you should give it a shot on the job market. This could be your practice year. And I thought, okay. And so when I was looking for programs to apply, I really was looking for programs where I would ideally want to work, um, which was not what I was advised to do. I was advised to just apply anywhere and, give it a shot as my practice year. And I thought, no, this is the year where I really get to just go for places that I would want to work. And Fresno State was one of those places because of the student body, and because of the faculty and Armenian studies and everything that we had in the valley. It really drew me to this area. And so I applied, and I gave it my all. I even shared my story as a genocide survivor and what I work on, and I ended up getting a phone interview, and then from there a campus interview, and I just really clicked with all the people here, and yeah,
And the rest is history.
that's right.
All right. So tell me about your work at Fresno State. What do you teach, and what else are you involved in?
Yes. So I am the German and ethnic humanities professor. And for the German program, I'm also the coordinator and the undergraduate advisor. So we have a thriving and growing minor. We require 4 German courses and then 2 elective courses.
Hmm.
And we have over 25 German minors at this point. And we keep getting more and more interest. So one of the areas that I teach is, of course, German language, but also German culture and history and all the little interesting cultural idiosyncrasies and things, because I always tell my students, you can speak a language perfectly grammatically correct, but if you commit a cultural faux pas, suddenly you've offended a friend
Hmm.
or that business deal just fell through. So we really focus on German culture more holistically, to be able to uh, go to Germany to be a grad student. Many of my students go on to be grad students, um, and they study in Germany for free from various fields and disciplines. And then I created a genocide studies course, Hume 120, which has grown really popular. Every year, I am pleasantly surprised that the moment that registration opens up, the course is instantly filled. So we have a lot of interested students, and the course focuses on comparative genocides.
Hmm.
So we study Armenia, Rwanda, Bosnia, and the Holocaust. And we talk about memory and trauma theory, and we talk about film and comics and video games and different popular representations for each case study.
Why do you feel it's important to educate students on genocide?
So I always tell my students when I welcome them to the Genocide Studies course that in this course, they're going to learn how to save lives. And they think that I'm being very hyperbolic and silly. But I think after a couple weeks, they realize why I'm saying this. Um, and for my own personal case history, it was really the people outside of my country that made the difference and that send intervention. And so I teach my students about how they can be that difference and how they can intervene, even if they feel like they're far away. It can be as simple as sharing news sources, informing
Mhm.
themselves, knowing about contemporary case histories that make all the difference to those people who are affected by genocide even today.
And I assume with comparative genocide, there are a lot of parallels, I would imagine, with how things start, how things go. Is that correct? Or
Yes, absolutely. So, genocide studies, there are stages of genocide. And when we look at the case histories that we study in my class, we do a comparative study where we look at how the early stages, especially, really match up in almost every single one of the contemporary genocide cases. And if we can learn about those early stages and we can recognize those early stages, we can also intervene earlier and avoid mass numbers of casualties and innocent lives being lost.
Hmm. What is the curriculum you're developing through the California Collaborative for Holocaust and Genocide Education Grant?
Yeah, so it's a wonderful grant that is part of a California collaborative. There are various organizations that are taking part in it. And we were just renewed for 2024, 2025. Currently, we're working on Holocaust and Genocide Education curriculum for high school students.
Hmm.
And as part of the collaborative, I'm developing lessons on the Bosnian genocide. Um, we early on in the summer we put on several workshops for high school teachers from around the Central Valley, and we've reached and educated over 35 teachers. And we're able to reach over 4,000 students in the Fresno area, high school students.
How is this different from genocide curriculum in the past?
I think what's unique about this particular collaborative grant is that we're not just focusing on Holocaust education. We have survivors for the Cambodian genocide.
Hmm.
We talk about the Armenian genocide. And then I also represent the Bosnian genocide and share my testimony with the teachers and with the collaborative. And I think in that way, when genocide becomes personal and becomes real, and you could see it and hear all the stories from those who survived, it makes it that much more real and that much more affective for the students and for the teachers as well.
Okay. How does your personal experience escaping genocide inform the curriculum you're developing?
I think being a genocide survivor and being able to share my testimony with my students and with various community members and teachers and workshops is that much more affective. I'm able to
Mhm.
reach them on a more personal level. Students often say to me, "There's no way that you're a genocide survivor. You're not in black and white. You're in color. You're
Right.
right there in front of me." And in their mind, that really breaks sort of this conception of never again, and that genocides don't happen again since 1945. And yet we know and we have evidence of them happening again and again. And so I think incorporating survivor testimony and my personal experiences within state curriculum and curriculum at Fresno State really gives it sort of a different lens and a different way for students and people to connect to it.
Tell me about the workshops you're doing with Fresno Unified School District.
So the workshops are in partnership with Avenues for Change, which is a local organization that focuses on Holocaust and genocide education. And They have a wide outreach with various school districts, but in particular Fresno Unified. And we've put on over 8 different workshops where we've incorporated various Holocaust curriculum elements and different lesson plans, but also introduced the Bosnian genocide, where I've shared my testimony and we've talked about how teachers can incorporate films, how they can incorporate different artifacts to teach students about genocide survivors and the Bosnian genocide. I've shared my story about refugee Barbie and my own personal items and the things that I was able to escape with. And again, it's just a way to color the history a little bit more and to bring it alive and to make it real for those students who are that much further removed from the history.
Right. And I really appreciated, as I mentioned before, that refugee Barbie really kind of makes it a real thing because of that story. And so I think it might be good as we wrap things up to kind of maybe tell the story of what happened to refugee Barbie.
Yes. Well, refugee Barbie made it all the way to the US with me. But from the moment that I arrived in that basement in Germany, I found the first nice box that I could find and I stuffed her away and never played with her once. Um, all my childhood, I sort of just kept her safe and pristine. And just recently, a year and a half ago, I was moving into my home here in Fresno, and my partner turned to me and said, "We're packing all this stuff up. Are we really going to take the creepy doll too?" And I said, "The creepy doll, she's my Barbie. She's the one that, I was able to sort of commiserate with and survive all these years." And I pulled her out of the closet and looked at her and I thought, what good does this doll do tucked away in my closet where all she is documentation for me? So I reached out to the War Childhood Museum. They are a organization that was started in Sarajevo, Bosnia, and since have international offices. And they organize exhibits and museum spaces to commemorate the experience of children in genocide and different wars. So they have exhibits on Bosnia, exhibits on Ukraine, Syria, and various other conflicts. And I reached out to them, and they were able to take my Barbie and make her part of the collection. And now she's not just a Barbie in a box sitting in my closet, but she's really able to tell a part of my story and bring that history alive to other people who visit the museum and individuals all around the world.
Yeah. No, that's really fantastic. Now, I saw in a recent Q&A article that you actually speak 7 languages.
Yes, English is not my first language. That is correct. I grew up speaking Bosnian and Croatian and Serbian, which are very similar. I can speak and understand Slovene and various other Slavic languages, which sounds really impressive, but they're all part of the Slavic family. And because we were all once Yugoslavia, our languages are distinctly different in many ways, but they're also very similar. And because we were all neighbors and grew up in relative proximity, we did learn each other's languages. And then, of course, because I escaped to Germany and I went through all of my schooling in Germany, I really actually considered German to be my first language. I feel a lot more comfortable in German. It's the language that I, think all my inner thoughts in, and that's the one I feel most comfortable with. And then when I came to the US, I learned American English.
A little birdie told me that you have an amazing dog story. And I I love pets, I love dogs, so I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah. Well, when I was about 5, just as the genocide was beginning, but there were no camps established yet, and we had not gone into hiding, my grandmother's neighbor's dog, Linda, who was this very beautiful white little cocker spaniel, had puppies, and my dad ended up helping her deliver all of these puppies. And it was a very stormy night. He crawled right into the doggy house, and she was really struggling. And so he was helping deliver each one of these dogs, and they were all coming out, these beautiful white puppies. And at the very end, this little tiny black dog with a tiny white dot on his chest came out, and he was the runt, and he really struggled. So my dad hand fed him and, really helped him kind of become his own little dog. And all of the little white puppies got picked up so quickly, and the little black one remained. So my dad took him, and it was our first family dog. My mom thought it was a terrible idea because it was very tense situations already. And
Mhm.
sure enough, just a few months after, we had to go into hiding, and we were not able to take the dog with us. So we left him at my grandmother's house, and we sort of said our goodbyes. Did not think we would ever see him again. And while we were refugees in Germany, one day we received a phone call, and it ended up being the perpetrators who were illegally occupying our house. And they said, "Hello, it's us, the perpetrators." We were quite shocked. And the first thing that came out of their mouth was, "How do we get rid of your dog?" We thought, "Our dog? Is he still alive?" And they said, "Yes, haven't you heard? He has a whole reputation. He is the dog that just won't go down." And apparently, soldiers had shot at him. They had tried to chase him away, but he refused to leave the home. So we kindly hung up on the perpetrators. And when we were able to regain legal rights to our home, that first day, we were very nervous to go because we had heard about this dog that guards the home. And so we walked up to the front gate, sort of all shaking. And the moment we turned the handle, we see this little tiny black head pop out of the bushes, and just the meanest growl. He charged right at us. And I looked at my mom and I said, "This is how we die. We survived genocide. We were refugees twice, and it's going to be our dog who takes us down." And as soon as he got up to us, he immediately came to a halt. He looked at us and just started wagging his tail. And it was the reunion we, only could have hoped for. We got to reunite with our dog for one last time, and it was probably the most peaceful the three of us had ever felt since the entire conflict and escaping. And we took him to the vet, and he was indeed shot at several times. He managed to somehow pull out his own bullet and sort of really just survived all these years on his own, and never left the house.
You're gonna make me cry. You know that, right? That's incredible. That's I'll, the whole time I'm listening to you, I'm picturing coming home from a vacation after a week and how my dog reacts when we come home. He just goes nuts.
Yes.
And I'm picturing after years and him not knowing who you are at first and then coming up and having that realization.
Yes, it was really a very sweet moment. And we don't cry very often, but that moment the three of us all cried, and we were able to pet him and to really spoil him. We got him lots of treats, and yeah.
Thank you, Amelia, for joining us today. The College of Arts and Humanities generally holds dozens of public events every semester. For the latest concerts, theaters, performances, and art shows and lectures, visit calendar.fresnostate.edu, and we'll see you next time. Artful Discourse is a production of the College of Arts and Humanities at California State University, Fresno. The Dean is Dr. Honora Chapman, and the Associate Dean is Dr. Sergio Laporta. This program is written, directed, and produced by me, Benjamin Kirk, the college's communication specialist. The theme song for Artful Discourse is Maiden Voyage by Fresno State music professor Benjamin Boone from his album, Joy. More information about his music can be found at benjaminboone.com. Special thanks to KFSR and FSR Underground General Manager Julie Lindahl for making this show possible. You can learn more about the College of Arts and Humanities and find an archive of our shows at our website, cah.fresnostate.edu, or on our blog, fresnostatecah.com.